Today, I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. Not just mental health stigma, but how the system often misses people who look okay. The mental health system almost completely missed me, not because I wasn't sick enough, but because I was too functional. Hi, this is not your typical self-help podcast. It's more of a we're doing our best and it's questionable podcast. And I just want to thank you for showing up. This is Surviving Kaos, a brutally honest, heartbreakingly funny, emotionally raw comfort space hosted by a hot mess and her emotional support pitbull. If you've ever felt broken, alone, or beyond repair, this episode is for you. Take a breath, whisper to yourself, I'm still here, and know that you are never alone. I'm Chelsea, and I didn't start this podcast because I have all the answers. I started it because I've survived things I don't always have words for, and I know how lonely that can feel. I definitely wasn't missed because I was okay. I was missed simply because I looked okay. High-functioning people often don't get help until they're already drowning. And stigma teaches us to only recognize pain when it looks chaotic, obvious, or scary. I want you to pause for a second. When you hear the words mental illness or bipolar, what's the first image that pops into your head? No judgment here. Was it something negative? Was it someone who is dramatically unstable, dangerous, very obviously broken? If it was, that's not your fault. That's the stigma, and it happens to just about all of us. And that stigma is exactly why people like me almost got missed. And we really need to change the stigma. Some of the most depressed people I've ever met have jobs. They show up early to work. They reply to all of their emails. They keep their calendars full. They smile in meetings. They make sure to always pay their bills on time. And nobody knows that inside they are drowning. Because high functioning doesn't mean healthy. It basically just means invisible. We have this image in our head of what mental illness looks like. We tend to picture it as looking like someone who just cannot get out of bed, someone who has completely fallen apart, someone who is visibly struggling. But what about the people who disassociate in board meetings? The people who have panic attacks in the bathroom and then walk out like nothing ever happened? What about the people who are contemplating taking their lives but still meal prep every day? We don't see them because they learned how to perform stability long before they ever felt it. And sometimes that performance becomes their prison. We live in a culture that worships productivity. If you're functioning, you're fine. At least that's what people assume. If you're working, you're fine. Again, what people assume. If you're successful, you're fine. But functioning is not the same as thriving. Functioning is survival. A lot of trauma survivors overperform. We become hyper independent, hyper competent, hyper responsible. Because somewhere along the way, we learned if I fall apart, nobody's going to catch me. So we just don't fall apart. We perfect this. We are so good at performing and tricking others into believing that we are fine. We teach ourselves how to work through panic, smile through grief, achieve through depression, and caretake through exhaustion. And people praise us for this. You're so strong, they say. You can handle everything. You're so put together. How do you do it? But strength without safety becomes burnout. And performance without support becomes isolation. There's this lie that says, if it was really that bad, you wouldn't be functioning. And that's just not true. Some of the most suicidal seasons of my life were also my most productive. I was working, I was posting, I was recording, I was showing up. And internally, I was in survival mode. Functioning is not proof of wellness. It's proof of endurance. And endurance is not the same thing as healing. You do not have to collapse to deserve help. You do not have to lose everything to qualify for support. You do not have to hit rock bottom to justify your pain. Here's the part that hurts. When you're high functioning, people don't see your pain. They only see your performance. They say things like, but you're doing so well. You don't seem depressed. You have so much going for you. And it makes you start to question yourself. You start thinking, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I'm just being dramatic. Maybe I just need to push through the pain. So you do. You push. And you push. And you push. Until your nervous system crashes. In private, of course. High functioning people don't avoid rock bottom. We just hide it better when we hit it. And stigma makes it worse. Because if you don't look sick, you don't get compassion. If you don't fall apart publicly, you don't get support. So you suffer quietly. And quietly becomes lonely. If you are high functioning, yet struggling, I see you. I can relate because I have been there. If you are exhausted from pretending to be okay and performing stability, I see you. I've been there. If you are tired of being the strong one, I see you. Again, I've been there. Your pain is valid, even if your life looks perfect on paper. Your nervous system deserves safety, not shame. And asking for help before you collapse is not weakness. It's wisdom. I wasn't okay. I was far from okay. Yet I was performing that I was okay. At the time, I was going to school full-time and also working 2 jobs. From the outside, I looked extremely driven, responsible, capable, motivated, but inside I was completely unraveling. The moment I knew I couldn't hold it together anymore, I called my mom immediately and told her that I needed help. She left work right away and drove to school, picked me up, and took me to the hospital. I was admitted to the psych ward for the next couple of weeks, and I didn't know it at the time, but this was just the first of nearly a dozen hospital stays. When my professors were informed why I was missing class, they were shocked. They told my mom that they hadn't noticed anything was wrong at all. One professor even said that every essay I turned in was graded as the example, an automatic 100%, and the rest of the class was graded from there. I had everyone fooled. My professors, my bosses, my friends, my parents, nobody knew I was struggling because on the outside, I was I was excelling, but on the inside, I was dying. And that's the part that people don't understand. I wasn't okay despite doing well. I was doing well at the cost of myself. My productivity didn't mean I was coping. It meant I was surviving. I didn't fall apart because I was weak. I fell apart because I carried too much in silence for too long. I carried it all quietly. The system is built to catch people when they fall, not when they're quietly drowning. I was capable of explaining my trauma clearly. I could tell jokes. I could pass every intake question. I learned never to mention the word suicide or the cavalry would come in and take you away. And because of that, I didn't look like someone who needed help until the moment when I almost didn't survive. If you ever felt like you weren't sick enough to deserve help, this is your permission slip. Struggling quietly is still struggling. And being functional doesn't mean you're okay. Before we go on, I'm going to pick an affirmation from the jar. And I don't pick these ahead of time. I just let the moment choose. If it feels like this one is for you, take it. If not, let it pass. Today's affirmation says, just because you're functioning doesn't mean you're fine. That fits perfectly. If you've ever felt overlooked because you were still showing up, this is for you. You don't have to collapse to be worthy of care. And if no one ever noticed how hard you were trying, I see you. If this episode felt familiar, you're not alone. And you're not invisible here. If you're still here, I'm glad you stayed. And I'll see you next time.